Hello, Lizzy here from Lizzy Curtis Designs. Today I'm going to show you how to make Missy. In my last video where I showed you how to make Mary, which is the accompaniment to this, or vice versa, she was actually called Mandy, but I've changed the name. So now this is referred to as Missy. And Missy is a carrier that fits inside a bag. So your medium to sort of larger size shopper bags, this will fit inside beautifully, which means you can organise yourself. So although Mary, and I've got the blue one there now, although Mary has inside pockets that you can put your bits and bobs in, it's also nice to have something that you can swap from one bag to another. And believe me, from personal experience, that is really important. So although this is for a bigger bag, it's still very useful because obviously you've got the size there, the inside where you can put your glasses case or you could put a bigger wallet or purse in there if you wanted to, perhaps your mobile phone. But you've also got these elasticated pockets on the outside, on the ends, on the fronts or the sides here. You've got pockets, got a divider going down the centre. On the inside, you've got also a lot more straighter pockets with no elastic, so things a little bit more sort of tight fitting. You're using the mesh, which is a little bit more it's got movability, if there's such a word. It stretches out a little bit. So if you put something in there that's a little bit more bulky, it's definitely going to fit. But the idea is that when you want to transfer from one bag to another, then Missy is going to be your best friend, especially if it's a bigger shopper bag, where if you know, as well as I do, that things go missing in a bigger shopper bag. You know, you lost that card that you needed, you lost your phone or your keys, whatever it is. But if you have this kind of, it's a carry-all really for inside of your bag, you know exactly where you might have popped something, where you might have decided that's going to be allocated, and you'll find it straight away. Much more useful than having it swimming around in the bottom of a big shopper. If however it's in your bag and you want to put lots of shopping in there, this is squidgy, so it'll take all those parcels and bottles and loaves of bread or whatever you need when you've gone to the shops. It'll be able to take that okay, and not compromise the size of your shopper bag. So this is Missy, and this is our complementary pattern to go with Mary. The blue, we're going to make the blue one today or make the red one, but it's nice to have them actually working together. So I'm going to pop it back on my shelf there behind me. So I've done a lot of preliminary work. If we look on the overhead, I'll just move my machine away. There's a very good comprehensive pattern that goes with this. So these are going to be your outside pockets. I'm going to show you how to make one of the little side ones. Then you've got the base that goes with that, and we've got the handles to go with that. So that's that little side of it. Then we have the mesh that goes on the lining. Got all sorts of bits and pieces going on here, and the lining pieces are all here. Now this is the lining that's going to be gathered up. This is the mesh that's going to be gathered up. I'll show you how to do that. And this is the mesh that's going to be straight. And I've got my binding to go with both, so we know what we're doing. We've also got the same with the sides and the base as well. None of it's stabilised, but of course you can stabilise it if you want to. And this just shows what the long sides look like. Let's get these out for you. And one of the short sides. So this is what they'll end up looking like. But I'll show you as we go along how to put all those together. So the first thing we'll do is the other side to the short side for the lining. And then you can see the process of putting that together. It's really easy. Really lovely project to actually create on a weekend maybe. So let's pop all these bits to one side, keep ourselves a little bit more organised. And so for this, all we need is the mesh, which is there. And this is a square, so that doesn't matter which side you have it around. I was moving around, but of course if you've got directional fabric, it does matter. So this is the mesh that's going to sit on top of that, and this is the binding that goes on top of that. So what we'll do first of all is attach the binding to the mesh. So this process is the same for all of the sides. So if I bring those back in again just to remind you, it's the same for all of these lining sides, and then you can decide where you're going to put your divisions if you want to. So let's just bring the machine in. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to attach our binding to the mesh, and with this binding we've only turned over 1/4 of an inch on the outside, the long edges. So if you can see that, we haven't turned the long edges to the middle, we've just turned over 1/4 inch, and it's the 1/4 inch fold line that we're going to stitch along. So just line it up on your machine, and regular stitch length of 2.4, 2.5 all the way down. Obviously you can clip this if you wanted to. Pinning is a little bit tricky with mesh, but you can pin. So let's just snip the threads there. So we've attached it along here. So all we're going to do now, keeping that fold as it is, turn that over, and you're going to just top stitch it down. And of course, like I say, you can pin now, you can pin or clip to make sure that you've got it all in the right place. There we go. And it's always advisable to give that a little press. Do be careful of the mesh. It will take a warm iron, but just to protect it, I would actually use a muslin or something over the top just to protect it. I wouldn't want to risk it having just stitched it. So that's what I would do, a warm iron and then something over the top of it. A little bit of steam will help. So now what we need to do is to actually attach this to our side piece. So if I hold that up, you can see. Now, of course, again, you can clip it in place. And in the pattern, it tells you to measure down from the top to make sure that all your pockets are sitting in the same place. If they don't match up, it doesn't matter. I'm not sure that mine actually do. But, you know, for those of us that need this to be absolutely spot on, especially if you might be gifting it to somebody, I have given you a measurement in the pattern of what the measurement is from the top edge down to the top of your binding. So we're basting the mesh in place just so it doesn't wriggle, makes it nice and secure. There we go. Just go a little bit beyond the top of your binding. And then if you want to, you can trim some of that mesh back. You might find it needs a trim. And it's lots of little bits. There we go. Super. So that's our end pocket done. It's like the short end of the inside. This is like the lining piece. Now what we might as well do while we're here is actually stitch the pockets in the long pieces. So let me hold that up to the side camera. So this is the long piece here. So we might want to divide this up. So maybe you could put a small pocket here. Let's get rid of that. Small pocket perhaps here, and have a big pocket here, or you can fold it in half, find the center, give it a little finger press, and maybe you want to just stitch down the middle, and you see lovely crease there. Or you can take it further along. I think I probably want it just off center there, so I'm just going to choose, make a decision. I'm leaving that to you as to if you want that divisional pocket. I would. And then just to make sure I've got the same the other side, I'm going to bring the other one up, and I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to do it like that, so it's opposite on the other side. So let's just fold it there, finger press it, get a crease, and then just stitch. And you're stitching from the top of the pocket, little back stitch just to make sure that's secure, and then down. And you might want to draw a line there just to help you with that. There we go. Okay, so that's all our lining pieces done. So we've got the 2 long edges done. We've got the 2 short edges done. So all we need to do now is to actually attach it to the base. So if I show you on the overhead. Now with the base, we're going to leave one of the ends as a turning gap. So this is the end we're going to treat as a turning gap. So we're going to just put that to one side for the moment. I don't need that one. Now on the wrong side of your base, which of course, like I said, you can stabilise. I'll just get one of my heat erasable pens. There we go. I need you to mark a 1/4 inch in from on all 4 corners. So just use your ruler, a smaller one is good, and just make a mark. There we go. You might not be able to see this very well, but you're literally marking a 1/4 inch, because this is your stop and start line, or your start and stop line of where you're stitching. So what we're going to do now is we'll attach one of the long edges. So let's just get one of those. And we're always right sides together. So there's our 2 pieces. Ooh, just seen a thread. Let's get rid of that. Right sides together, so put that on top of there. And there's my little dot that end. There's my little dot that end. You probably can't see that very well. Let me see if I can make it a wee, if I make it really, really big, I'll need to remember to aim for the centre of that. So we're going to start stitching there. Come along here, and we're going to stop at that dot there, and we're going to do that on all sides except this one. This is the one that we want to ignore for the moment. So let's go to the machine. Let's bring that in. Of course you can pin or clip this just to make sure it's nice and secure. You might want to put your needle into that hole, just to, you know, not the hole, the mark, just to make sure you're on that dot. Nice little back stitch. Get it all lined up. 1/4 inch seam allowance. And just finish on that dot. There we go. So that's one side attached, and that's attached to our base. Okay, that's what it looks like. So we'll do the other short end. So let's take it from here. So all we're going to do is move this long side out of the way, and I'll take the short end so it's right sides together. Don't forget that the mesh goes along that bottom seam. So we're just going from dot to dot again. Make sure your needle starts at the mark that you've made. A little back stitch to make it really secure. And then all we're going to do is stitch up to the mark. So where you've got your stop and start line here, your dot, you're just going to stitch to that dot and no further. It's quite a good marker, you can't miss it. So one more stitch as always, and then go back. Okay, so let's put the next long side in. So that's what it looks like at the moment. That's literally it. So now we're going to do this long edge here. So once again, just move your fabric out of the way, and you're going to stitch from that dot, which is just here, right down to the other side. And this time I'll do it with the side facing me. So again, let's just get that lined up. So you might want to mark the dots on the actual sides of the fabric as well. So just make sure that is right out of the way. So that's your little end piece there. you need to fold it back so you can stitch from that dot. So all the way down. And we're just getting down to that end corner again. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to mark my 1/4 inch just to make sure I don't go over my dot, which is there. Just make sure that's lined up. And then get to the dot, do a couple of back stitches like that. So now we've got a piece, let me hold it up. Now we've got a piece that looks like that. Still, I don't want you to touch the other short side. What I want you to do is to stitch these side seams together here. So again, it's right sides together, and you're stitching from the top down to the dot. Now you won't be able to perhaps see the dot at the moment, but you'll be able to see your stitch line. So you're going to stop stitching where the stitch line ends. It's quite obvious. So right in the centre of that dot, if you'd marked it there, a couple of back stitches just to secure it. And then on the other side, so if I hold it up, that's what it looks like. We're bringing those sides together, and you're stitching from the top again down to where you stopped finished stitching before. Now if you did top stitching on your your basting on your pockets, then just make sure you are on the left hand side of that stitching so it doesn't show. So a little back stitch there. So that's joined up the 3 pieces like that. We can see that now. So all I want you to do with this side piece are the side seams. Okay, so let me show you on the overhead so you get a good idea of what I'm talking about. So what you're going to do is just assume, for instance, that's attached. So what you're going to do is to bring that up to the top there. Let's put a pin in so you can see what that looks like. And you're going to stitch from there down to your 1/4 inch corner. And then all we're going to do is bring that over and stitch the other side. So we're leaving that open. That's your base and the base of your short end. So that's what you're leaving open. I think that's quite clear what we're seeing there. So you're stitching from there to there and from there to there. Okay, so let's get it on the machine. Little back stitch, make it nice and secure, and then you're coming down and stopping at your 1/4 inch. So my suggestion is that you mark a 1/4 inch on all the corners of all the pieces that you're using, and that way there's no hesitation. You can just get on, happily stitch away, knowing that you've got all your markers there. So now we're going to do the other side. So we've done this side here, now we're going to do this side. So start from the top, work down to the bottom. So you're only stitching the sides, you are not stitching the base. Because that's, as I said, that's our turning gap. So all the way down. And it's quite obvious when you're stitching this, you can see exactly where you stopped and started on the other pieces that you've put in. So really you've already got those markers there. So that's our lining done. Looks lovely, doesn't it? I love these colours. And that's your turning gap just there. This is a new Lewis and Irene. Well, it's what is it, May 2023. So this is one of the new Lewis and Irene prints by Cassandra Connolly, I think her name is. Lovely young lady. She's brought out another collection since, actually 2 or 3 this year she's bringing out, but it's lovely. It's all about the sea, under the seabed and things like that, and the pictures are seashells and seaweed and mermaids and whales, turtles, crabs. Oh, it's beautiful. Anyway, so there is the lining done. So the next stage is to have a look at the outer, which is slightly different. So let's bring all our bits and bobs in. So you've got the base, so that's the base that we're going to use in a minute. You've got the 2 little ends. We're going to stitch one of them now, and it's got elastic running through, so I'll show you how to do all that. And it's got the 2 long sides, just exactly what we've done before, but obviously this time first of all I've divided it down the middle, and this time we've got the elastic on there, which allows us to put more things in, like we need any encouragement. So I'm going to show you how to make the other little end, and then we'll join it together exactly how we did it before. Just before we do that, we need to put handles on. Now I've already made one set there, one handle there, and then need to stitch this one, and then we're going to attach it to our outers just before we put it all together. So let's get going on that. So I'll bring the machine in. The first thing we're going to do is do exactly what we did before with the binding of the pockets, and this is where we're going to thread elastic through. So the first thing we need to do is to actually get our mesh, get our binding, do exactly what we did before. Let's go on the side camera so you can see. So all we're going to do is stitch in that 1/4 inch fold that we made when we turned these edges over. So don't forget, it's just a 1/4 inch that you're turning over on that that binding. It's not bias. You can use bias if you want to. So you're just lining up the raw edges of the mesh and the binding, and you're stitching in that 1/4 inch fold there. Now you'll notice that the mesh and the binding is quite a bit wider than your actual pocket. That's because we're going to gather it up with the elastic. Now I want you to be careful of your seam allowances here. If you think that it's going to be difficult for you to do the elastic, because we're going to thread it through, then you could make your binding just a little bit bigger, or you could use thinner elastic. So I'm using 1/4 inch, so you could use 1/8 of an inch if you wanted to, just to make it that little bit easier. So there's our binding attached to the top of the mesh. So all we're going to do, as we did before, keep that fold, and we're just going to flip it over, and we're going to stitch down. Now this is where you need to be careful with your seam allowance. So I don't want you to sew right inside this binding here, otherwise you'll never get your elastic through. I want you to go as close as that edge as you can. If you think that's going to be a little bit difficult for you, like I say, just widen that binding. I suggest you try before you commit yourself to all of the pockets, on the outside at any rate. I would try a little bit, see if you can get your bobbin threader through, sorry, your elastic threader through, whatever gadget you use, just to make sure you can get it through that little gap. We've got about 1/2 inch there, but really it depends on how closely you can stitch to the fold of your binding. So if I stitch it and then I show you, and if I say it's a 1/16 of an inch, I really mean it's a real mean 1/16 of an inch. I've just got a thread there and I need to pick up and remove. Let's take that out. There we go. Yeah, so you need just to be that little bit more careful with your stitching. Now I know some of you will be more confident than others when it comes to this sort of thing. So like I say, add another 1/4 inch onto the width of your binding. I've given you the measurements in the pattern, but add another 1/4 inch on, but try before you commit yourself. That's all I can say. So if I bring that up, you can see, if you get in real close, you can see how very close I am to the fold of that binding, and that's exactly how you want it to be. So what we need to do now is cut our elastic and get our gadget that we use for threading the elastic through. Now I have a rather nifty set of tools here that I use. And this is the one I like best of all. I actually can't remember the company that I got this from, but they are Japanese. You can see that. And they literally are just like bodkins, really super. So with this one, all I have to do is bring this little ring back to open up the teeth, and then I just put the teeth onto the end of my elastic, hold it down. You can use a safety pin if you want, as long as it's a small one. Hold it down, grab it, and then just move that ring along, and it's grabbed that elastic beautifully. So maybe that's, you know, something, it's worth an investment. Now what you could do is cut your elastic so it fits exactly that measurement, and I can tell you that in the pattern, but in actual fact once you gather that up it's going to be less than that. So I would just thread yourself up a piece, and then I'll show you what happens next. So thread your elastic in, try and keep it straight. That way it sits nice and straight in the casing. You don't want it, really you don't want it to twist. And then just start to bring it through. And like I say, whatever gadget you use, can just be a safety pin if you want to. As long as it goes through the width of this, you'll be fine. So just bring this back and secure that with a clip. Let me just get a clip. And just make sure you grab that, because we're going to be pulling on that. Put a pin in as well if you think necessary. Let's do that, because we don't want to thread that again. So a little pin in there. There we go. And then you want to just gather that up. And what we want to do is to gather it so it fits onto this pocket beautifully. So just gather it up. It's only a little bit, so it doesn't take a minute. Just be careful if you've used pins. Just give it a measure. Look, and that measures beautifully on there. So you can cut that now, but you certainly don't want to lose the end of that elastic. So just snip it. I mean, you could leave it on that length if you wanted to. Just move that out of the way. And I'll put my clip on there. To make sure it's still there. Yes. Put a pin in if you want, just for security. Let's do it. There's nothing worse than trying to chase a piece of elastic out of a small casing. And then we're going to baste it down in place. So what I'm going to do is change my thread colour, because at the moment I've got cream on there. We'll go back to navy blue. In the meantime, I'll just explain that I'm using a sew-in Bosal foam line interfacing here. Now, it means that obviously it's not sticking to the fabric. So just for security, I tend to use a little bit of my temporary spray. So just spray it away from my desk. And that really does, oops, that really does help keep everything in place. Let's try and get it in the right spot. There we go. So now that's secure. And once we've stitched it into the seams, it's obviously very secure. But you might want to use iron-on Bosal, that type of thing. That's up to you. You could use a soft wadding if you wanted to. I'll leave that for you to decide, because oftentimes I'll do something and then you'll say, well, actually I wouldn't mind using a lighter weight interfacing, or I don't like foam. Personally, I don't like foam either. It's very clumsy to use, but it does make a good strong bag. Right, I'm going to change my thread. Okay, so now we're ready to stitch our mesh pocket onto our little side pocket, and this is the outer. So if we look on the side camera there, again you might want to measure down the top so you know that you've got the correct measurements going all the way around, so all your pockets line up, and then use a clip to hold that in place. And then you're just going to bring it across to the other side. And you're going to clip it in place again. I wouldn't remove any of the clips or pins that you've got in there, just until you're absolutely ready to. And then just find the centre and pop a clip in there, and what we do is as we get to come down here and we go across this bit here, we'll just ease that fabric in and just kind of pleat it a little bit along the bottom to make it fit. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start just a little bit further up from the pocket here, and then we're going to come down just to base this all in place. So I've just taken my clip off, so keep hold of everything, and my pin. So I've got my hand well and truly on top of the elastic to stop it from moving, and if you're unsure and hope that you've got it all, I would just do a back stitch and then come down, remove the other clip, come down to the bottom. Don't forget we're just basting, so it's about 1/8 of an inch. I like to take my clip out, and then you want to maneuver this mesh so it sits flat and it's kind of pleated, so you're going to pleat it yourself. Make sure this pocket is nice and straight, and just ease that mesh in. I wouldn't worry about gathering it on the machine. You're using a mesh, it wouldn't easily gather very well. I think you'd have a little bit of difficulty with that. So again, just make sure that pocket stays straight. Come up to the corner, and then we're coming down the other side. I'm a little bit wriggly on mine, but you can be a lot more careful than me. So just come up the side, and then I want you to hold that elastic. Take the clip out, you've got the pin there as security. I'll just show you. I'm going to do a back stitch over my elastic just to make sure I've held it. And then let it go. Before you take that pin out, just make sure you have got it. It's one of those moments you think, have I or haven't I? I can feel it there, but I'm just going to put another stitch in just to make sure. Better to be safe than sorry. Okay, so now we've got our elastic well and truly secure. It's got our little ends off there, and then you can trim this so it's nice and neat. Trim it along the bottom if you need to. Make sure you followed all your measurements. Like I said, I do give you a measurement, but you might want to do your own. Just trim it so it's lovely and neat. You've got a nice edge to follow. That's it. So that's our little pocket done. It's got a little bit of thread in there. Let's get rid of it. That's it. So that's our little pocket done, and you can see that I've just gathered it manually across the bottom, and that's absolutely fine, and our elastic is well and truly in there. I'm not going to pull or tug at anything until that's into the seams, which will really hold it nice and securely in place. So the next thing we're going to do is the straps. So we've already done one strap. Now I'm going to do the other. There's no stabilizer in this at all, and it ends up with a nice thin strap. So if we look on the side camera again, all it is the usual method, folding the two long edges to the middle, and then we're folding again. I've given you the measurements in the pattern. So we're going to top stitch all the way down. I like to do the double fold first, and that keeps that nice and neat. So you know the folds are sitting well and truly on top of each other. Try and stitch as straight as you can. Sometimes it's not easy. Do your best. If you're using a matching thread, nobody's going to notice anyway if you're slightly wonky. And anyway, it's going to be inside a bag, isn't it? Although it would make a great craft caddy. Yeah, it really would. Okay, so that's the other strap completed. And again, you'll probably want to press that, make it nice and neat. Just trim that all away. So now get both of your long sides with the pockets. Here we go. So let's pop those in front of us here. And what you need to do is to find the centre and then measure out, and like it says in the pattern, measure out and pop your handles in the right place. And what you could do is, just to make sure you've got them both equal, you can line them up like that. So find the centre first of all by folding in half and making a little clip. Don't forget, we're only using, in this pattern, we're only using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So don't be gung-ho with your clip. You just want a tiny little bit. So now we've got our clips, you can just see our little V's, our notches cut out there. So what you're going to do is measure either side. Like I say, I've given you the measurements in the pattern, and you're just going to clip these in place. And just to make sure that you've got them equal both sides, then you can keep them sitting next to each other like this. And let's do it that way around. I mean, it's not essential, but it's nice to have everything equal. Make sure your straps are nice and straight and bring it round to match. Again, you can make sure they're sitting absolutely dead opposite. I think I need to move that one. Let's do that one again. You were probably shouting at the camera, weren't you? The screen. Move it along, Lizzy. There we go. Happy with that. But like I say, work from the centre, measure out, and put your straps in the place that it says in the pattern, and we're good to go. So I'm going to pop that under the machine, and I'm going to baste it just to keep those straps in place. So our basting is about 1/8 of an inch, and I'll go straight across the top. I won't stop and start, but you're only basting 1/8 of an inch. If you want to lengthen your stitch, that's always useful to do. So I'm starting about 1/2 an inch away from my strap, thereabouts. And if I get my hand out of the way, let's just put my pokey tool there so you can see. All the way across the top. Let's get that clip out of the way. And again, straight over the top. And just keep on going. And there's our lovely straps in place like that. Looks really pretty. So now it's just a case of doing exactly what we did before. This time we're going to stitch the little side piece in. And again, we need to mark our corners. So let's get our ruler in. Got the biggest ruler in the world here. And again, we're only 1/4 of an inch. So just keep your big ruler in one place and just move your fabric. It's much easier. And then once you've done that, what I would do is also mark the 1/4 inch on the back of these, in case that's a better reference for you. Only on the bottom corner, so you can see where the mesh has been installed. So just on that bottom edge, don't worry about the top. And on this one, let's do that again. So it's worth doing all this, because we sort of turn the project around, and then we'll do the same on the little pockets as well. Don't forget just that bottom edge, that bottom seam, and again, and this one. Lovely. That keeps us, we know exactly where we're going at all times. Got a few ends there, so you want to trim those away. So we're going to do exactly the same as we did before. We're going to attach a long side to our base, and obviously it's right sides together. Don't forget that the mesh goes towards the base. Okay, so just flip it over, and if you want to, you could use clips to hold it together. So just clip a little bit away from your starting point, take it up to the end, one in the centre. There we go. So we're going to start there, run along here, and stop at that dot there. Now, because you've got the dot and you haven't guessed, you know exactly where to stop and start. But I do want you to do a back stitch. So 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way along. It's a lot of layers to go through, but because this is foam, your machine should cope. But I would lengthen the stitch, which reminds me, let's lengthen the stitch. So I would lengthen mine to 3. So nice back stitch. So there's our first long side done, just about to see it there. So let's do a side next to that, so it doesn't matter which one. So we're not stitching up the sides, we're just stitching along these bottom seams at the moment. So you need to push that corner out of the way and pop the dot. You end up with a little sort of diagonal fold of fabric, and that's where you kind of stitch from. So you're folding back. Let me show you on the side camera. You're folding back this top one here, and that leaves you with a 1/4 inch, just about see it there, and that's where you start stitching. So this can be moved out of the way, and if you want to, you could clip it just to get it out of the way. And then with this one, you're stitching from the dot. You're stitching from the dot there and across. And if you get the dot in the right place, so all your edges are lined up, so all your corners and your straight edges are lined up, that should fit absolutely perfectly. Again, a little back stitch to secure, and then we'll just run across. And you might find a walking foot really useful. I don't think I've got mine on. Let's put it on. There we go. And a little back stitch. So let me show you on the side camera. Let me just snip that thread away. So you can see on the side camera, I've literally just gone up to that dot there. So again, just fold that out of the way. We're going to fold that back. Again, clip it. Just get it out of the way by clipping it, and we're going to start stitching from that 1/4 inch mark there. So don't forget, we're putting a long side on, and the long side with the mesh goes against the base. So there we are. If I show it to you like that, everything's covered in bits, isn't it? And you're going to start stitching from that dot. So line up all your edges, get them all parallel. You won't go wrong, I promise. I always think these things look far complicated than actually doing. So of course you can clip and pin to your heart's content to hold this all in place. So just got to the dot and a back stitch. So that's what it looks like. Let's just unpeg that. So as we were before, that's what it looks like. Okay, and now we're going to put this last little side on, just as we did before. So just move your side piece out of the way, clip it back if you want to, and you're going to line up the base edge to the edge of the base piece, and you're going to start stitching from that little dot, and it'll all fit. As I say, as long as you line everything up, make sure that your corners are sitting perfectly on top of each other. Again, little back stitch. And then when you come to this side, this other side, you just want to move that out of the way. Bring that down. And you're just stitching up to that dot again. Let's just move that slightly. There we go. There we go. Try not to go past that dot, because that restricts your side seams. So there's all our 4 pieces attached. Okay, so it looks like that. And now we're going to stitch the side seams together. Start from the top, start from that top edge and come down to your corner. And if you've cut these accurately and you've stitched every seam at 1/4 of an inch, everything should fit. So a nice back stitch again. When I say a nice back stitch, you wouldn't want to do not a nice back stitch, but you know what I'm saying. Just make sure all your edges are lined up. And you're only going down to your dot as best as you can. Okay, so we'll just work our way around again. So top the fabrics together. Line up those top edges so they're parallel. Okay, that's 2 sides, and the last, second from last. So make sure these top edges are sitting parallel, then everything else will be straight. Last one now. So I'll start from the top again. I don't think my pockets are very well lined up, but I'm not going to see it when it's in my bag, am I? So it does pay to measure. So just bring the sides together. Take your time if you need to. The foam, as I say, the foam should be absolutely fine. I think it always feels worse than it is, and your machine should be able to go through it. It just squidges the foam down, so it really, you know, it does what it's supposed to do. So there is our outer done. Let's turn it through. We can see what it looks like. So you can see that the foam gives it a really nice rigidity. I wouldn't trim the corners. You're making a little weak point if you do that, because it's only a 1/4 inch seam allowance. That should be fine, but you just want to make sure that your corners are poked out a little bit. There we go. And that's our outer piece done. Looks so pretty, doesn't it? And our lovely little handles. So all we need to do now is to pop the lining on. So the lining's already sitting right side inside. That's great. We're just going to pop the foam outer inside this. We've already got our turning gap, don't forget, at this end here, so we can go all the way round. So just slip it in. And the main thing is getting the corners matched. So match them up. And if you get those matched, the rest will just work in. Make sure you pop your handles inside. And if you've done a lovely back stitch, then it'll all be secure at the top here as you're pinning. Okay. So, don't worry if it's a little bit ruffled. It's because of the foam, but that will fit absolutely perfectly. Look at that, it's beautiful. Okay, so we're going to stitch all the way around the top now. I tend to stitch on the inside of my project. I find that easier. And I'm going to stitch it from the middle of one of the long sides. Again, we've got a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Just make sure your pockets, your straps are sitting nice and straight and out of the way and not caught into the seam. And we'll just work our way around. So just make sure your raw top edges are sitting together. of your lining and your outer. I mean, to be honest, if you do miss the fabric, you know, it shifts. Oh gosh, just do it again. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. Right. Okay, just past those first two corners. So now we're coming down the other side. I'm just rearranging my fabric. Of course, you could pin or use your clips all the way along here just to make sure it's sitting beautifully. Watch those straps, because they are thin and they might just sneak in there without you knowing, and it might get trapped, or you might twist them. So just keep your eye on those. And if you feel comfortable doing, more comfortable rather, doing a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, you do that. Okay. Oh, nearly running out of bobbin. I think I'll get round. It's just, the machine just stopped there telling me it needs a bobbin change, but I think we'll be okay if I speak nicely to it. Fortunately, it does give me a little bit of warning. And I usually have, oh, that doesn't sound so good. I usually have about what would I say, about 6 foot, no, maybe 4 foot of thread left. Trouble is, it always wants me to press the button, so forgive me for that. We'll just get there in time. Sorted, done. I've just gone a few stitches over my starting stitches rather than a back stitch. Let's move that right out of the way. So there we are, that stitch. Phew! Bobbin roulette. There's a little bit of funny stitching going on there. I could hear it catching, but I think we're okay. So we've got our turning gap here at the end, the short seam. So now just be careful. You don't want to rip what you've just stitched. It is a small gap, but it will go through. You just got to take a little bit of time over it. This is why everything needs a good press. There we go. That was easy, wasn't it? Now, obviously you're going to be stitching that opening closed. You could glue it, you could put it under the machine again. Just hold the two ends together, 1/4 inch folded under, and top stitch it, it'll be fine. And then it all needs poking in here. Now, I wouldn't, on the Mary bag, here and here, we trimmed back that top seam to allow us to top stitch, or at least give it a really good press, and took away some of that bulk. Because we've only stitched 1/4 inch, then I don't think you've got enough. Well, I suppose you could cut away 1/8 inch, couldn't you? And then you could give it a really good press and top stitch it, just to give it that neatness. So, but it definitely needs a good press, because that foam really likes to roll over. So give it a good press right along that top edge. And that then is our lovely Missy finished. Actually, I quite like the faux binding at the top. Might leave it like that. See, we can make our decisions up as we go along. But that will fit inside the blue bag. So this is our blue version of Mary. So let's unzip it. Where's my zip? Here we go. So let's just open that up. There we go. This is waiting for a final press. And then pop all your bits and bobs in there, so your purse, your wallet, your car keys, mobile phone, maybe a little wallet for take your receipts. I have to do that. Maybe you need some mints, I don't know, all sorts of tissues, all sorts of stuff that we need to carry around, but also we need to swap them out. And that fits very neatly inside. You will also find it will fit into other medium-sized shopper bags. I'll just give it a little push down, and you can see, I don't know if you can see, but it's inside there. So then obviously once we're finished with this bag, we can just use the handles and take it out and then pop it into another bag. Obviously, because of the size of it, it's not going to fit into a normal regular handbag. I need to give this its final press. But that is our blue version of Mary and Missy. And I think they're absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me in this tutorial. I hope you enjoy making them. I certainly will, and I'm going to really love going shopping with them because they are all so bright and cheery. Ooh, lost something. So we've got the red version here and the blue version here. This is Mary, this is Missy, this is Lizzy. Thank you for watching. I hope you make loads.